Rural Americans deserve access to the best of what our country has to offer, especially health care. Across every state, every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families healthy. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care.
This is Full Court Press with Sean Spicer.
Sean Spicer will be getting a new position.
A decorated veteran, a political strategist, and he knows Washington inside and out.
Just like Sean Spicer.
The Spicer era.
Sean Spicer.
The Full Court Press is on the air.
Sponsored by the Tunnel to Towers Foundation.
Now, here's Sean Spicer.
Good Sunday morning. This is Sean Spicer. This is Full Court Press, WABC. What a week we've had. For those of you who turned in last week to the premiere, I expected to talk about the economy and the State of the Union. And there we were talking about going in and bombing Iran and taking it. And I mean, honestly, somebody said to me, guys, it is Sunday, right? Think about this. It was a week and a half ago that we were having the State of the Union. I mean, that's normally when, we'd be talking about that for weeks, and here we are, 10 days later, and I'm not even talking about the State of the Union feels like it was the convention. Anyway, we've got a great show coming your way. I want to break down the latest in Iran, Texas, the Department of Homeland Security, and then we've got two great guests coming your way. Theo Wald is the former Assistant Attorney General. He and I both testified in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee about Biden. I want to talk to him about Biden's incompetence and what this means for the auto pen and the pardons, all that stuff. But also, there is something going on in Virginia, and regardless of whether you have a clue what's going on in Virginia or not, it's coming to you. Democrats are basically not even looking the other way on illegals anymore. They are now openly trying to keep them in this country. And what's happening in Virginia, my friends, is, I don't even know, it's scary. There is a guy who is literally being let go that murdered a woman at a bus stop and was convicted, was charged with 30 other previous times. And they're actively like, yeah, okay, let him back out. And the governor, Abigail Spanberger, is not cooperating. I cannot believe that. It's one thing to defend illegals, to bring them into this country. I mean, I get the plan, right? Here's what they want to do. But the notion that someone who murdered a mother at a bus stop in cold blood, stabbed her, by the way, not to be gruesome on a Sunday morning, but that's what happened. And they're like, okay, let him go. Let him go. I mean, he's only done it 30 other times. What could possibly happen? Well, I've got some news for you. I'll play this for you in a minute. The cops in Fairfax County, Virginia are saying, we know what's going to happen. We've seen the movie. So I'll tell you about that in just a minute. I want to get to the latest in Iran and obviously Department of Homeland Security and maybe a little in Texas. But some great guests. Theo Wald is going to join us. And then later in the show, I don't know if you caught this, but Bobby Kennedy, the Health and Human Services Secretary, was on with Joe Rogan and made this bombshell announcement about what they're doing to move up peptides. And if you haven't heard this, or if you've just like me watched a lot of fitness bros talk about it on Instagram, you're going to want to hear this. Dr. Jessica Duncan is the medical director for IVEAM Health. She is an obesity specialist, board certified, by the way. And there's a lot of talk about what this means for wellness, health, obesity going forward, the use of peptides. So if you've heard the buzzwords but are thinking, gosh, I don't want to speak up because I don't know what that means, then this conversation is for you. All right. And also, by the way, a couple quick personal notes. If you ever want to follow me, it's at Sean Spicer on Twitter. I've got two shows. Go to YouTube, Sean M. Spicer on YouTube. We go live every morning, weekdays, 8:30 a.m. for a show called The Huddle, where we talk about what's happening that every single day and then take your questions. So goes to YouTube, subscribe, and you can also watch my 6 o'clock show. It's all free. I've got a brand new book out called Trump 2.0. It's available on Amazon now, which I'm so excited to share with you guys because it's the first look at the difference. And President Trump was kind enough to write the foreword about why this is going to be such a consequential term. We'll talk about that. But obviously, the big news still in the headlines right now is what's going on in Iran. And I got to be honest with you, the Democrats just don't get it. I mean, they almost like reflexively want to be for whatever Donald Trump's against and against whatever Donald Trump's for. But we're in day 8. I think this is 8, maybe 9 of, 8, 7, because we started last Saturday and it's Sunday. So that's 8 days. And they're suddenly using words like forever wars, forever wars. It's 8 days. And as I said last week, and I'll say it again, I give the president a lot of like leeway right now because between Operation Absolute Resolve and Midnight Hammer, which is the first Iranian attack and then Venezuela, I'm giving him a lot of latitude right now. He's shown that he's got an America first way of coming at this stuff. And I'm going to give him some latitude. That's me. I think that we can't, there's two things that I think are important to understand. Number one, Iran was a threat to the United States. It was killing people all over the world. When you run around shouting death to America, what more do you want to see? I mean, it's funny. After 9/11, we had this whole commission about like, did we see the signs? Did we know this is coming? What should we have done to be prepared more? And here's a country whose leaders are yelling death to America. What more do you want? I mean, they're building a nuclear weapon. They sponsor terrorism. They kill people in the region. And were the Democrats waiting for like a full-on memo? PowerPoint presentation? What is it they wanted? I mean, I'm sorry when they go, well, the president didn't have any concrete evidence. I'd be like, here's like 8 of their leaders yelling death to America. There's days in which I'm going, what do you want? What is it that's good enough ever for you? I know there's a lot of jokes and memes of the president. If the president walked across water, they'd say that, he couldn't swim. If he cured cancer. I mean, like, it's just ridiculous. But it's got to the point now where we're taking out a major threat to the United States. And you know what? Maybe some of it, I think a lot of it was the timing. Hey, we can take them all out at one shot. We can do this. Do you want to wait or you want to do it? But think about how many recriminations there were about not taking out Osama bin Laden when we had the shot. Why wouldn't you take these guys out? It's insane. I mean, so anyway, that's where I am. But the other untold story, and this is the sort of, I get why the White House doesn't want to be out front on this. So I get it. But let me just dial you in on this. China is, to me, the greatest existential threat because they may not be as vocal as Iran, but they want world domination. That's go read it. They put a book out there, the Belt and Road Initiative, everything. I mean, they don't hide it either, but they just use different words. But China seeks that. We have now basically cut off the majority of oil flowing between Venezuela and Iran. That's the dirty little secret right now that no one wants to talk about. If you're worried about the threat that China poses, then you should pay attention. This is to me that we are winning. This is the big deal. So I'm just saying, this is going to be a big deal going forward. So anyway. That's what I mean, my takeaway is this. Now, the other big thing is the Kristi Noem thing. And you saw Donald Trump putting out a truth. I'm pleased to announce that the highly respected senator from the great state of Oklahoma, Mark Wayne Mullen, will become the United States Secretary of Homeland Security effective March 31. I mean, I love the way, by the way, the president just says it as if like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm not even going to mention that he kind of has to be confirmed by the Senate, but we're going to put a deadline on it as if he controls all. There is something about how he operates I love because it's just like, no, the Senate actually still has to confirm the guy, but I get it. He is a United States senator. It's going to be easy. And then he says the current Secretary, Kristi Noem, has served us well and had numerous spectacular results, especially the border, which is true. Big issue for the president in the campaign. She led that, oversaw that effort. So credit to her. Will be moving to be the special envoy for the Shield of Americas, our new security initiative in the Western Hemisphere that we are announcing. Well, they announced, but this is when he wrote this on Friday, on Saturday at Doral. I thank Christy for her service at Homeland, and Homeland's in quotes. By the way, so again, her title is Special Envoy for the Shield of the Americas. That's going to look great on a business card. Look, let's just be blunt. She bungled this thing. Her testimony, and if you watch the huddle, I said this, it's on my YouTube channel every morning at 8:30. Then I don't mean, I mean, it's on tape, so I can say this without sounding like cocky. I said it. The idea that she not only ran a $220 million ad campaign, but put herself in it in front of the Mount Rushmore. I mean, honestly, it looked like a Chamber of Commerce ad. Like, I was like, I want to come to America. That looks cool. Cowboys and Mount Rushmore. Wow. Let's go wherever that is. It was in running on Fox News. I mean, like, it didn't pass the smell test. She's running around on a horse with a cowboy hat on in front of Mount Rushmore saying, like, don't come, to the tune of $220 million. I mean, I don't see how you thought. Now, here's the thing. I grew up in Rhode Island, and I've said this the other day, but like, we used to, there used to be there's apparently a lot of mafia there, or was. And you used to hear like something was a sanctioned hit. John Kennedy, the senator from Louisiana, was asking her about this. And I said at the time, it was a sanctioned hit. He said, I have these receipts. Now, we do know from further interviews that John Kennedy has done, the White House gave him the information. It was a sanctioned hit. Noam had gotten too far out over her skis, and they said, take her out. But where the mistake was twofold, as far as I'm concerned. Number one, when John Kennedy said, did the president know about this $220 million ad campaign? She said, the lawyers, blah, 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 and the legal process. And he said, no, that's not what I asked. And John Kennedy is a very adept lawyer, so he knew what he was doing here. And he said, no, that's not what I asked. Did the president of the United States sign off on this ad campaign? And Noam goes, yes. And I thought to myself, watching that testimony, oh, you didn't. You just invoked him. You just brought him into this conversation. And he did not. I mean, no. And then they leaked out that they had used this $70 million Boeing plane, which, by the way, they told Congress was deportations, as a bar and a queen bedroom in the back. Like, I'm very thoughtful of them when they deport people. You want to take a nap before you go back to your country of origin? I mean, literally. And then so they apparently lent it to the first lady to go to New York one day, and then leaked out that the first lady had been using it. I've said it then, I'll say it again. Do not bring the first lady into your fight. That was the dumbest move ever. I have a ton of respect for that woman. She basically I still credit her as one of the reasons I got my job in the White House. She is one of the kindest, nicest women ever, but do not cross her. And by bringing in the first lady to this debate was a massive, massive mistake. And now Kristi Noem is the special envoy. Unbelievable. I mentioned before, but I just want to go without saying, I want to play one clip to you that I should have played a minute ago, because I would be remiss if I don't. And as you guys get ready to start your work week, Hillary Clinton was, the Dems are freaking out about somehow, like, this is Trump's war and all this. I want to play for you a clip of Hillary Clinton in 2008 talking about what she would do with respect to Iran if she were president. Take a listen.
And I want the Iranians to know that if I'm the president, we will attack Iran. Whatever stage of development they might be in their nuclear weapons program in the next 10 years, during which they might foolishly consider launching an attack on Israel, we would be able to totally obliterate them. That's a terrible thing to say, but those people who run Iran need to understand that, because that perhaps will deter them from doing something that would be reckless, foolish, and tragic.
Yeah, and then, by the way, when Hakeem Jeffries was asked, well, wait a second, Nancy Pelosi greenlit these strikes against Syria when Obama was president. She said he didn't need congressional action. This is how Hakeem Jeffries answered the question to a reporter from Fox. Take a listen.
Thank you, Leader Jeffries. Back in 2011, Nancy Pelosi said that then President Obama didn't need congressional approval to bomb Libya. Now House Democrats say President Trump needs that approval to bomb Iran. What's the difference?
Well, obviously, Libya and the circumstances connected to that were very different than the circumstance that we face in Iran right now. I mean, I don't even understand the genesis or basis of that question. Not suggesting that you're not asking it in good faith.
Libya went on for 7 months.
As I've indicated, first of all, I was not in Congress at the time. So we're dealing with what we're dealing with right now, which is a catastrophic, endless war.
Guys, he's tying himself a war. So when Obama did it, Pelosi said he didn't need congressional approval. Why does Trump need it now? Well, I mean, it's obvious, isn't it? Libya begins with L and Iran begins with I. And so it's completely in separate. I mean, like, what do you sit down? Don't ask that question to me again. I don't understand the basis and the genesis of that question. Well, it's called hypocrisy, Hakeem, you dummy. I mean, they're totally different. Libya has 5 letters. Iran is 4. I mean, how could you possibly think this is the same thing? One begins with a vowel, one begins with a consonant. Come on. Crazy. Next question. All right. I told you coming up, though, got 2 great discussions. One with Jessica Duncan. She is the medical director of IVM Health, and she's going to talk to us about this big announcement that Bobby Kennedy made about peptides and what it means for us, our health, our wellness. But before that, Theo Wald was the former assistant attorney general, and he actually was in the first Trump administration as well. And we testified to a bunch of stuff in front of the Senate Finance Committee. But one of the things I really want to get Theo's take on is what's going on in Virginia. Now, here's the predicate of what's happening. There's a guy. The guy is illegal. He's been arrested 50 times, okay? Or 40 times, something like 30, 40. Who cares? It doesn't matter, does it? I mean, whether it's 30 or 40. So he gets himself arrested a bunch and let off over and over and over again. Then he kills a woman, a mom, at a bus stop in Fairfax, Virginia. And I want to play for you the report from ABC, not from Sean Spicer, not from Breitbart or the Daily Caller or the Daily Wire. This is the ABC affiliate in Virginia talking about what's happened. SOT 7, go.
A Virginia woman was killed at a Fairfax County bus stop. We're learning the man charged in her murder is in the U.S. illegally. His name is Abdul Jallo from Sierra Leone, according to the Department of Homeland Security. I'm at the Fairfax County Courthouse where I discovered this man has a lengthy criminal history. More than 40 charges in the past, ranging from stabbings to malicious wounding and much more. And almost every case, Fairfax County Commonwealth's Attorney Steve Toscano dropped charges against this man. Only secured 1 conviction in the past. He served very little time. He was let back out into the community where then he allegedly stabbed this woman of Fredericksburg. Now, this woman's family is heartbroken. According to an obituary, her family describes this woman, Stephanie Mentor, as a jolly, happy individual, a light in dark places. And tonight, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security is calling on Virginia Governor Abigail Spanberger and Fairfax County officials to hand this man over to ICE so they can deport him.
Okay, no brainer. Guy kills someone in cold blood. He's not in this country illegally. Arrested 30 some odd times before. No brainer, right? The governor says, yeah, I don't want him in because he's going to be a threat to additional citizens here in Virginia. Well, that reporter went on. Take a listen to what Spanberger wants now.
By now, you may have seen the news out of Virginia where an illegal immigrant from Sierra Leone is accused of brutally murdering a Virginia woman at a Fairfax County bus stop. And Virginia Governor Abigail Spanberger says if ICE and DHS want this man deported, they should get a signed judicial warrant. So what is that exactly? What is a judicial warrant that ICE and DHS would need to get? Well, I've spoken with some experts, some former federal prosecutors, and they say even if ICE or DHS went to the local court at the general district and circuit court level in Fairfax County, they could not get a warrant if they wanted to. That's what they tell me. And even immigration advocate lawyers tell me they couldn't do that either. However, those immigration advocates lawyers say they could go to a federal judge and get a warrant, but there's some disagreement there. Jonathan Fahey, Zach Smith, former federal prosecutors, they say that this man would need a federal charge in order for ICE and DHS to do that. And right now, this man is facing a state charge, murder.
All right,
and
you heard that
way,
right there. That's right. I mean, you heard that. The guy committed a state crime. He killed someone in Virginia. It's not a federal charge. So Spanberger is trying to get the feds to do something they have no jurisdiction over. She is basically creating a hoop that she knows they can't jump through. She doesn't want this man who murdered a Fairfax County woman in cold blood at a bus stop to be deported. She doesn't want this guy who committed 30 other crimes that he was accused of to be deported. Why? What is going on in today's Democratic Party? Well, I'm going to ask Theo Wald. He's a former assistant attorney general when we get back. I mean, this to me is absolutely insane. Guys, you're not going to want to miss this discussion or the one that's coming up with Jessica Duncan of IVM Health on peptides. You're listening to Sean Spicer on Full Court Press, WABC. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
This is Full Court Press with Sean Spicer.
Sponsored by the Tunnel to Towers Foundation
On 77 WABC.
Rural Americans deserve access to the best of what our country has to offer, especially health care. Across every state, every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families healthy. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care.
At Planet Fitness, we've got everything you need to get stronger with best-in-class equipment and free fitness training, so you can give everything you've got. Join today starting at just $15 a month. Planet Fitness, we're all strong on this planet. See Club for details.
If data management is slowing down your business, you need the Intuit ERP. If one entity is here, and one here, and one here, and one here, you need the Intuit ERP. If scaling your business feels like starting over, you need the Intuit ERP. Intuit Enterprise Suite is the AI-native ERP solution that consolidates, migrates, and automates, all in one place. Learn more at intuit.com/ERP.
The Full Court Press is on the air.
Sponsored by the Tunnel to Towers Foundation.
Now, here's Sean Spicer.
Welcome back to Full Court Press with Sean Spicer. Good Sunday morning. Well, to break a lot of this down in the legal world, I am excited to be joined by Theo Wald. He is the former Assistant Attorney General and now the Director of the Administrative State Project. How perfectly timed that is, at the Claremont Institute Center for the American Way of Life. Theo, good to see you. Thanks for joining us this Sunday morning.
Thanks for having me, Sean. It's good to be with you.
All right, I played this before you got on, and I want to get to a lot of stuff with you, but I've just as a reminder and to refer, I know it's probably not fair to do to you. There's this issue in Virginia. An illegal alien has been arrested over 30 times. 30 times. And the Fairfax prosecutor has let that individual off 30 times. Well, he upped his game. Unfortunately, stabbed a woman at a bus stop. Okay. And now, literally the police in Fairfax, as I played this, I won't play it all again, but I'll play part of this so that you get the benefit of hearing this. The Fairfax, Virginia police, I think, intentionally set a trap to make sure that they were that they let the Fairfax County prosecutor know what they knew. Let me play it for you. Go.
I have an update in the Stephanie Minter case. That is the Virginia mother who was murdered at a Fairfax County bus stop, allegedly by an illegal immigrant named Abdul Jallo. I heard that police warned the Fairfax County prosecutor, who dropped numerous charges against this man in the past, that he, if he was allowed to be back out into the community, could do something like this. So I submitted a Freedom of Information Act request seeking the communication between the police department and the prosecutor's office, Fairfax County Commonwealth's Attorney Steve Descano's office. And I just received the results of that FOIA back. And what I have here is an email from a police major in Fairfax County dated November 15th to the Fairfax County Commonwealth's Attorney's office. I'll read some of it to you. It says, I want to bring Mr. Jallo's release to your attention because Mr. Jallo is one of the repeat and violent offenders we discussed when we met. I wanted to get your background on why he is out so soon and ask if his prior suspended sentence of, I believe, 5 years was pursued by your office. It goes on to say, and pay attention to this, unfortunately, based on the station's numerous dealings with him, it is not a question of if, but rather when he will maliciously wound, or worse, again. My role of keeping the public safe prompts me to follow up on his status. So this email between the police department and
Theo, the police are saying, hey, we know what's going to happen. Abigail Spanberger, the governor here in Virginia, is basically saying, well, gosh, the feds need to do their job. But the Fairfax folks are like, hey, it's a state charge, not a federal charge. You were the assistant attorney general. I mean, isn't she's being misleading with what's going on here?
Yeah, 100%, Sean. And just to start with like the top line point for your listeners, Stephanie Minter, the victim of the assault here, the woman who was murdered, she was a mom and she was at a bus stop on her way to work. She wasn't in a drug zone. She wasn't engaged in criminal activity herself, just a law-abiding citizen going about her business and attacked by this naturalized alien, Abdul Jalla. And the other part about Jalla's past, which you got at there from the reporting from Fairfax Police, but he has a history of violent criminal conduct. This wasn't a guy who stole a Snickers bar from a convenience store. This is a guy who had been credibly charged with rape, sexual assault, multiple stabbings in his past, 30 total offenses, and was released. And I think the point here with Governor Spanberger, they want to make this about ICE. A number of Democrat state senators in Virginia have said, well, this has to do with ICE and ICE's failure. No, you're exactly right. This is a straight state crime. These were all state crimes in his past. And really what you're looking at here, Sean, is this is the fulfillment of the Democrat vision of public life going forward. You got a radical Soros-backed DA in this area. You have a refusal to work with ICE and immigration authorities. You have a total jailbreak view of criminal justice system, which is there's no offense that's too heinous to keep someone behind bars. And now you have a total denial of accountability from everyone who should be caring about this woman and now her orphan children.
Theo, I mean, look, I'm not a lawyer. I watch a lot of Law and Order. Am I missing something here? I mean, is there something where it's like, sometimes I say this with respect to politics to people, like the obvious, it seems obvious what to do, but there's something that prevents that. Is there something that I'm missing legally where that he can't just be deported?
No, not at all. You're not missing anything here. I mean, all of this would be grounds. I'm not aware of like his existing current immigration status, but all of this underlying criminal conduct, even if he had been naturalized, which is not my understanding that he is a naturalized citizen at this point, but all the underlying criminal conduct is exactly what we have a denaturalization process for. But the one thing that's really important here to keep in mind is you have a state's attorney, the local prosecutor here, Descanso, who was backed by the Soros, that whole wave of funding for, essentially pro-criminal prosecutors. He has essentially said categorically, not in this particular case, but categorically, he will not prosecute these kinds of individuals with these kinds of alleged crimes. So
it's on his website. He literally doesn't hide it. It's on his website. He says, hey, immigration status, not a problem. Like I want to keep, quote, families together. Like it's what here's, and this, I'm glad you brought this up because what I don't understand is I've always believed or understood that like, if I get charged with breaking a window and you get charged with breaking a window, we're supposed to get treated. I mean, not just theoretically, but if you got let off and I didn't, I could in theory go and say, hey, Theo Wald just got let off for breaking a window. I'm going to jail for it. Isn't that there's a fairness issue, right, in the law?
Oh, totally. And there's a fairness issue. And, Democrats love to lecture us about the rule of law, but a bedrock principle of the law in our country, going all the way back to the founders' experience under the British Crown, was the arbitrary enforcement of the law, that one person is sanctioned and punished and another is not. And one of the things that the founders believed really strongly was that you could not have categorical dispensation under law, meaning just because of your race or your immigration status or your wealth, that group of people could not just be said, hey, we're just not going to prosecute you. But that's exactly the Democrat view of criminal justice now, which is if you belong to this group, no matter what you do, we're not going to prosecute you. And that's just, it's so violative of the legal norms we have, but also it's just so destructive. You see the consequences here. An innocent American mom waiting for the bus to go to work was murdered by this guy who should have never, number one, never been in our country to begin with, but number two, should have been behind bars a long time ago.
I just can't, for her family, for Stephanie Minter's family, someone murders, like just anyone, right? I mean this like another human being murders a loved one, and you go, all right, well, we want justice. And someone goes, no, we're going to go out of the way to help them because they're an immigrant. It's like the opposite. The thing that I find so funny, and maybe I'm taking this way out of context, but look what happened to President Trump. They literally made up charges to go after him, right? Like the Alvin Bragg stuff. It was a misdemeanor. They made it into a felony. They didn't tell the jury that they actually found him guilty of a particular crime. And then in this case, it's like the guy literally breaks all law, and they're like, no, we're going to let him off. I mean, in one case, they go after somebody weaponizing the law, and the other one, they let people off. It's to me, I can't believe it doesn't get more attention.
I think that really is the main takeaway, Sean, that so few people have heard about this story. So there's been so little national press. I mean, outside of Fox and a couple of conservative outlets, no one's really talking about this story. And the facts here are so egregious. It's not, again, this isn't a story about a guy who stole a candy bar from a convenience store or, cheated on his homework. This is a guy with a documented history of violent crime who then attacked an innocent American on their way to work and murdered her in cold blood and broad daylight. And really, there's no consequences for this kind of conduct. And as you said at the outset, the governor's view has been somehow ... this is ICE's fault. And this is, and Sean, the big takeaway down the road is this is how Americans start to lose, if they haven't already, lose confidence in their institutions. Depending on what color skin I am, where I was born, I'm going to get a certain kind of treatment before the law. And that's what, that's the takeaway from what Trump went through. It's a takeaway that a lot of people are seeing as they acquit, some of these guys who attacked ICE agents in Los Angeles. Well, the jury was just like, I wasn't going to prosecute him. I wasn't going to vote to convict because he was the same color as me. That's never happened in our legal system. And the fact that it's happening now is incredibly destructive.
But to your point, Theo, this is insane. The Democratic Party loves to lecture everyone about the racism and what is their buzzword? I mean, equality, justice, fair. I mean, they've got all these buzzwords for everything about,
Yes, they do.
Okay. Yeah. And here we are going the opposite way, which is first it was, we have this period in our history of our country where the color of your skin determined your outcome. We said we can never let that happen again. We must, learn our lessons and move on. And now we're going the complete opposite way, which is if you're in this country, if you've actually been a criminal, if you've broken the law, now you're going to get more rights than someone who's been law abiding. I go back to Stephanie Minter's family. I'm like, you've got to be like, I can't imagine how apoplectic they have to be saying that we lost our mom, getting stabbed in cold blood at a bus stop where you would think I'm just standing on a street corner. It's like, it gives me like thoughts of that young Ukrainian on the train in Charlotte where it was just sitting there. Someone walks up to you, kills you. And then the answer is, oh, well, like it's insane. I want to get Theo, though. I don't, because we're never going to figure out why Democrats do this. So I want to touch on one other big subject that the Republicans kind of touched on this week, and then I think maybe have taken their foot off the gas, and this whole issue of Biden's auto pen, and it's back in the news, and then there's a question about whether DOJ shelved the inquiry. Can you just walk me through, like, I'll give you my law and order legal understanding, and then tell me where I'm wrong. My understanding is that the pardon authority is like sacrosanct. If the president says I did it, it is what it is. And that unless we got Biden on tape saying I never knew that I actually gave anyone a pardon, like, it's hard to prove that they weren't done with the authority of the president. Like, I guess the question is, how do we prove that they weren't done correctly? And how would we challenge them? But are we smart to back off from this, or is this we're just missing the legal angle?
No, I mean your JD in Dick Wolf programming is working out, Sean, because you're exactly right on the legal question here. Okay. This was always going to be extremely difficult to prosecute after the fact, especially when there are no witnesses. There's no witnesses willing to flip and say the auto pen was used without the president's knowledge. And
does it matter? Does it matter if it was signed or? I mean, my understanding, again, this goes back to my Law and Order Dick Wolf understanding. Like, the law doesn't say it has to be auto penned or wet signed. It just has to say the president has the authority. I mean, I guess that's where I'm wondering if we're barking up the wrong tree. Like, we keep talking about whether the auto pen is used. Does it matter?
No, you're exactly right. And when you and I testified before the U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee on this, I think both you and I separately made this point, which is the auto pen is just a tool. It's a tool of convenience. The question is whether or not the president knew the auto pen was being used. That's the issue. So, I mean, this White House or the Reagan White House or whoever can use the auto pen to sign documents. The question is the president aware that it's being used with his authority? As you said, that the pardon power is sacrosanct under the Constitution. It belongs to one person, not his chief advisors, not the Attorney General of the United States. The president alone gets the pardon. And the issue all along was, did Biden have the mental competency to actually authorize the use of the auto pen? And I think that's where you say barking up the wrong tree, Sean. That was always my issue with the way the auto pen story was presented by members of Congress or conservative media. Was the real issue here was about Biden's mental fitness. Was he actually competent at this time or not? Not whether or not the auto pen was used.
Yeah, and when you and I testified, one of the things that the Senate Judiciary Committee, we were both there to testify about what we can do basically to prevent this from happening again. Because the idea was the press didn't do their job, the White House, the Biden cabinet, et cetera, covered up. I mean, what do you think we need to do? Because what do we do about a future president who is like Weekend at Bernie's?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's not inconceivable after what we saw, just over the last 5 years with President Biden. Look, I think there were two sort of recommendations that you and I both made there, and I think they're really kind of demands that Congress start to think about this. One, which is you got to make the 25th Amendment more robust somehow. You have to either create liability for members of the cabinet, because if you remember, Sean, and maybe some of your listeners will remember this, Janet Yellen gave these interviews post-presidency, post-Biden administration, where she said, I got to the point where I was a little nervous to go over there because I wasn't sure if he was totally with it. And Buttigieg said the same thing, where he's like, sometimes I avoided some conversations with him because it would just restart the process, and I wasn't sure if he was actually tracking what we were doing at the Transportation Department. Okay, if secretaries are aware that the president is of such diminished capacity that he can't follow along in a simple conversation about highway policy, maybe it's time to call for the 25th Amendment. But right now, there's no obligation to do that. And in fact, the political incentives all run against it. And members of the cabinet, whether people want to acknowledge this or not, are political actors. So I think reforming that part of the 25th Amendment is really important. And the second thing I'll say just really quickly is we still have a real succession problem in this country, because there's a scenario here where you've got a president who is mentally infirm or so severely unwell, they're hospitalized or they're in a coma. And then you could have a situation like we did in the Nixon presidency, where Spiro Agnew goes down on a corruption issue and resigns. And then you've got a vacancy in this the succession filled by, under the current plan, the vice president, the Speaker of the House. But no one's really confident that that jives, especially with democratic legitimacy. And we've never thought about that scenario. What happens if there's a terrorist attack and the president and the vice president are both wiped out at the same time? And we've been told for years since the 9/11 Commission, hey, you guys got to get a handle on the succession of the president. You really got to think about this. And Congress still doesn't want to take this subject up. So I think both of those topics are ripe now for like, okay, if you can't prosecute Mike Donnellan and Steve Ricchetti for using the auto pen, we should at least think about how can we make sure the 25th Amendment is used when a dude with the nuke codes is no longer with it.
Yeah. All I'll say is it's funny because most of the time I was laughing when you were talking because I kept thinking to myself, most people are dying to get time in the Oval Office. And in the Biden cabinet, it was like, I don't want to be anywhere near that place. Theo Wald, thanks for being here. Really appreciate your insights. Guys, we're going to come back right now with an unbelievable talk about peptides. It's something that Bobby Kennedy talked about with Joe Rogan this week. What does it mean for you, your wellness routine, and your health? Stay with us. This is Full Court Press with Sean Spicer on WABC.
This is Full Court Press with Sean Spicer.
Sponsored by the Tunnel to Towers Foundation
on 77 WABC.
The Ozarks, it's more than a place, it's a feeling. Here at Silver Dollar City, it's the feeling we get from creating, discovering, and putting on a show. It's that powerful spark we get from exploring something old and experiencing something new. Plan your visit to America's #1 theme park today. Silver Dollar City, the heart of the Ozarks.
Welcome to your personal briefing. The Full Court Press is on the air.
Sponsored by the Tunnel to Towers Foundation.
Now, here's Sean Spicer.
All right, welcome back. This is Full Court Press with Sean Spicer on WABC. A lot in the news this week on politics, a lot in the news. But one of the things that went underreported, if you will, is the big announcement that Bobby Kennedy made that for those of us in sort of the MAHA movement are very interested in. This big announcement that sort of went unreported on Bobby's appearance on Joe Rogan was his discussion about peptides. What is a peptide? Why does that matter to us? What's next? To break this down further, I want to bring in Dr. Jessica Duncan. She's the medical director at IVM Health. Dr. Jessica, good to see you.
Good to be here.
All right. This I think, like I said, went kind of underreported when Bobby made this mention on the Rogan podcast, but a lot of people in the MAHA movement got excited. So let's just start with, can you explain to people like what is a peptide first and foremost?
Yes, absolutely. I think it's interesting because when it came out on Friday, I think a lot of mainstream media kind of missed it, and we've been seeing more reports on it this week. And really, what are peptides? Really think about peptides sort of like a smaller protein. So peptides are, made up of building blocks called amino acids, just like proteins, but they're smaller. And what a lot of people don't know is peptides are really found throughout the body. A lot of our hormones are peptides, like insulin and growth hormone. The one that we hear when we talk about peptides a lot is GLP-1. So the GLP-1 hormone in the body is actually a peptide as well. And so when these peptides bind to their receptor or their target in the body, then they create a certain effect in the body. And in its simplest sense, that's really what peptides are.
So why, I guess what I didn't understand is, this sounds really simplistic. Like, why is this like a big announcement? Like, were they restricted in the past? Are they dangerous? Like, why? Like GLP-1s, Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro, Zepbound, those are all like drugs that I have to go to CVS and get a doctor to sign off like you. But like, what is the peptide? Like, is that, you mentioned it's a naturally occurring thing. Like, why is this a newfound thing? Or what does it mean? If I'm sitting there as a patient, do I need a doctor or what?
Yeah. So when we think about peptide therapy in the way that Secretary Kennedy is talking about it, we're really talking about synthetically made peptides that mimic a peptide in the body. So what's exciting about what Secretary Kennedy said, and really when he came on as a secretary at the beginning of the administration, he has always expressed an interest and a positivity about peptides. So what happened was in 2023, there were a number of peptides that were used in clinical practice, but due to concerns with not having sufficient data on the effectiveness of the peptides, they were actually moved over onto the category 2 list, which restricted our ability to manufacture and offer these to patients. When Secretary Kennedy came on board, he did express that he's had personal experience with peptides, has had a lot of clinical benefits, and that he had a desire to really look at the science again and see if we couldn't get them moved off of the category 2 list to make them available. So what he told Joe Rogan on Friday is that actively right now, the FDA is reviewing the science, and he anticipates that within a few weeks' time, 14 of the 19 restricted peptides will likely be moving off the category 2 list, which would allow pharmacies and manufacturers to begin making them again.
So, so when you say making them again, it sounds like people have been introduced to them and then they got pulled back.
Exactly. So he does mention this in the podcast as well. So people were introduced to them and then they got pulled back. But what happened was people were experiencing the positive benefits of them. And so when they got kind of pull back, like you said, that didn't mean people wanted to stop using them. So what it's created is sort of this desire to get them by any means necessary. And he mentioned in his comments that they were kind of finding them from unethical or unsafe sources, a different alternative market, so to speak. So people didn't want to stop using them necessarily. So it really created this sort of new or alternative market, so to speak, where people were obtaining them without physician guidance, sort of from unknown suppliers. And that's actually quite dangerous.
See, that's what I wanted you to touch on, because you are an obesity doctor. You lead this whole effort at IVM Health. But like for people who are like, I'll be honest with you, and I've known you a while. I texted you the other night. I'm on Instagram, and I see this fitness bro. I mean, it's fun. I mean, I this is the sad state of. I'm sure you love this as a doctor when people like me are like, I saw on Instagram, and I saw this fitness guy, and he's talking about all of these peptides, and there's one that I'll butcher the name of called retatrutide, right, or something like that. But this is the hot one. Why is that? Why is suddenly everyone in the fitness space talking about these?
Yeah. So, I think the big thing is that what happened when we as doctors couldn't prescribe and access these drugs is that it kind of, like I said, people were using these already in the fitness space.
Wait, when you say using them, doctor, I don't understand that. Like, how would I, if I looked at this, so I want this drug. I think I saw I'm just playing devil's advocate here. I'm on Instagram. I see this fitness bro. Like, when you're saying using them, how would I have gotten it?
Wouldn't be getting them through a doctor like me. You'd be getting them through some sort of alternative market where it's very unknown of exactly what you're getting, the quality of the ingredients that you're getting. Just like Secretary Kennedy said, it was these unethical suppliers, kind of the words he used to refer. I don't know. I really haven't looked to try to find them.
But I mean, the point is that if you're getting them, or if somebody's telling you they can get them, this is not what you want to be putting in your body right now.
Exactly. And really, what's so interesting about peptides in general is the risk and benefit discussion is very nuanced and very specific to an individual person. So without having physician guidance or provider guidance, I think it's really difficult to make those decisions on your own. The dosing is very nuanced. How it works with the other medications you're taking, your risk factors is very nuanced. So I think having that in a guided way is really essential. And there are doctors like me who have been staying on top of the available data, staying on top of the research trends, following what's going on in the fitness community, seeing how people are responding, even though these aren't things that we're prescribing. We're staying on top of it. We're well versed. We're here and ready so that when they do come off the category 2 list, we're ready to help guide our patients who could benefit from them.
Yeah, and I think that's the takeaway. I mean, there's a lot of us, myself included, that have tried to, go on this wellness journey. I've, bounced a million things off of you because I'm like, I see stuff. And I think for a lot of people, they're following people who are, talking about wellness and health on Instagram or some other social media platform. This is going to sound like the silliest question ever, but there's a story in GQ that you're quoted in about this whole issue, right? And I'm pulling it up to talk to you because I wanted to refer to it. When I'm looking at this story that quotes Jessica Duncan, doctor, a board certified obesity physician and chief medical officer, I mean, literally to the right of that, literally right now, there is an ad for collagen peptides that quote mix right in. I've used these in smoothies in the morning. Again, what's the difference? Why can I mix some collagen peptides in my smoothie in the morning? Maybe I shouldn't. And versus like this other one that we just talked about. Like, again, is it like a broad topic when you say peptides? There are different categories.
Yeah, so some of them are used as drugs and some of them are used as kind of like food and supplements. So they're regulated in a very different way. So what you might see advertised as collagen peptides as a supplement, like a powder that you would mix with foods. When we're talking about peptides like one that's called GHKCU, that's a copper peptide complex, that is something that is on the Category 2 list and may potentially be moved off. And that's quite different because that's really regulated as a drug that's taken, either topically through an injection. And it really depends on the bioavailability or how the body metabolizes the medication. And I realize I didn't answer your question about the retatrutide. That one is a little bit different. So retatrutide is actually a triple agonist. It has a GLP-1 effect. It also has two other receptors it hits. And that's actually a medication that is in clinical trials and will be FDA approved hopefully before the end of this year. But that is a medication that's used for obesity that is going through the research drug and development pipeline. Anyone who's receiving or taking that medication right now is not getting it from a doctor or a prescriber. It's frankly not available to us. Just like, semaglutide, tirzepatide had to go through the clinical trials, retatrutide does as well. So that's frankly not available. We're hoping it's going to be available for patients in 2027, but that one's a little bit different than the ones that Secretary Kennedy is talking about on the Category 2 list.
So just sticking on this retatrutide thing, because that's where a lot of buzz is for people. Is this the next big thing? Is this something that you guys at IBM Health are already saying, we see where the market is and we're going to want? And who would that be for? I mean, if you think about it, you mentioned tirzepatide and there's semaglutide. Like, what are the differences? If you're out there saying, which one's for me, how do you know? Or is that what you do as a doctor to decide based on the patient?
Absolutely. So retatrutide, like I said, it has that additional receptor. So when you think about, semaglutide targets one receptor, tirzepatide targets two. Tirzepatide had a little bit higher of a weight loss result than semaglutide by adding that other receptor. Now, when we talk about retatrutide, we're adding a third one that works on the glucagon receptor in the body. And clinical trials are showing even more weight loss than what we had with tirzepatide. So this is definitely going to be the next big thing. And I think what's even more interesting about it is there's something about that extra receptor, that specific glucagon receptor, that's shown additional benefit for fat metabolism, particularly in the liver. But what you see about in that fitness community, those who are using it for better or worse right now are reporting changes in their body composition. And I think a lot of it is because of that third receptor benefit. So for me, obviously, you always have to talk to with your patient and say, well, what are your goals? How much weight do you have to lose? And then make a decision on which medication, those who are seeking medical therapy for obesity, which medication is best for you. But I absolutely believe that retatrutide is the next big thing. I think there's been talk in the medical community that for patients who previously had a higher BMI and might have been faced with the option of, bariatric surgery, this is going to essentially kind of rival that for patients that has more weight to lose just because of the outstanding results that we're seeing in clinical trials.
This one's being produced by Eli Lilly. Now, Is this going to face the same? I mean, like we've seen with President Trump and Trump RX or whatever. I mean, the cost is for many people prohibitive, right? It's like $1,000 or $1,500 a pop. Are we gonna? Do you foresee the next version, whether that's compounding or something else, where suddenly we're talking about, okay, how do we take this retatrutide and bring it down to an affordable means for so many people? Like, is that the next wave, or is that sort of maybe? I know I'm asking a doctor to maybe talk about the pharma side, but where do you see that going?
Cost is an important conversation because, listen, I want my patients to be able to have access to the right drug for them. There's nothing that's more frustrating for me when we have a conversation and we decide, well, this is your best option. And then they kind of get back to me and say, I can't afford that medication. Now we have to go back to the drawing board. We have to figure out what's going to be the next best option for them. Nobody wants to offer their patients the next best option. And it's great to have it, but we always have to talk about cost as it pertains to accessibility. So I think think that's a topic that absolutely has to come up. I think as we get a little bit closer into, through the phase 3 clinical trials, I think that conversation will start to emerge. It sounds like it's been a hot topic and something that the administration does actively work on with the pharmaceutical companies, but I absolutely think that's a conversation we need to be having as retatrutide is coming through the FDA pipeline.
Getting back to this peptide thing, is this something that, as I said, it's very hot among I keep colloquially referring to them as the fitness bros, but I'm sure there's fitness girls as well. But is this something that's just for people who need to lose weight or have an obesity issue, or is it like there is a peptide for wellness, of improving certain aspects of your health that may not, or fitness that may not be specific to weight loss?
That's a great question. So the interesting thing about peptides is they are very broad. Because of the way that they're built with these little chains of amino acid, they can kind of plug into different receptors and have different effects. So if you think about them, there are peptides that are, that have all kinds of wellness targets. I really think of them as what is your wellness target? What are you looking to do? So one of the peptides that we see a lot, fitness bros and, sort of on social media, is BPC 157. So for example, that peptide is really known for really, potential anti-inflammatory benefits and potential help with injury. But then there's other things like I mentioned which was the copper peptide complex with GHKCU, which is more sort of relevant to collagen production and sort of external signs of aging. So that's a vastly different, function for each one. So I think if you look at the list of peptides, the things that they could be used for are really vast. There are some that are more focused on body composition. So I think that depending on what your wellness goal is, you could almost argue, peptides could potentially be for everyone, depending on what your goal is. They're just so broad and vast what they can do and how many there are.
Okay, so if you're hearing this conversation between me and Dr. Jessica Duncan, the medical director of IVEAM, as the discussion of peptides moves forward, last thing I want to just ask you is there a line between ones that you should be asking your doctor about and ones that you could take on your own without necessarily medical oversight?
I think anytime you're putting something new in your body for health or wellness, it should be a conversation that you're having with your doctor. What I would say is find somebody who is well-versed in this, who has an understanding of how they work, who knows what the research looks like, and who can really dive in with you and look at your health history and go through the risks and benefits and figure out what's beneficial for you. This is not something that you want to be doing on your own. The cycling, the stacking, the dosing are all very nuanced. This is something that it's really going to benefit you to have provider guidance when you're making these decisions about how to use them, how long to use them, and what to use them for.
Okay. Dr. Jessica Duncan, medical director at IVEAM Health and board certified obesity specialist. Thanks for being with us on this Sunday. I really appreciate it. Guys, thanks for joining us for this edition of Full Court Press and WABC. Look forward to being with you next Sunday. You can always follow me at Sean Spicer on Twitter and tune in every day on my YouTube channel for my live 8:30 show, The Huddle, or every night at 6 p.m. for the Sean Spicer Show. We'll see you back here next Sunday.
Rural Americans deserve access to the best of what our country has to offer, especially health care. Across every state, every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families healthy. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care.